Sir. The farmhand who arrived that morning found the animals fed, the cows milked, the chickens let out. Someone had been maintaining the Hinterkaifeck farm for days. The family inside had been dead the entire time. Hinterkaifeck was a small Bavarian farmstead, roughly 40 miles north of Munich. In March of 1922, it was home to 6 people. Andreas Gruber, 63 years old, ran the property with his wife, Cäcilia. Their widowed daughter, Viktoria, lived there with her 2 children, young Cäcilia, 7, and an infant named Josef. The family's new maid, Maria Baumgartner, had arrived just that day. Her first day of work would also be her last. By all accounts, the household was ordinary. Difficult, perhaps. Neighbors had noticed tension, kept their distance. But ordinary. Then something changed. In the weeks before the murders, Andreas Gruber told neighbors he had found footprints in the snow, tracks leading from the forest to the farm, none leading back. He had also found an unfamiliar piece of newspaper in the house, a Munich tabloid from a region no one in the family visited, and he reported that someone had been sleeping in the barn at night. He could hear movement. He never reported it to police. On the evening of March 31st, 1922, someone led each family member to the barn, one at a time. The adults first, then the children. They were killed with a mattock, a heavy farm tool, part axe, part pick. The weapon was never recovered. 7-year-old Cäcilia was found with clumps of her own hair in her hands. Investigators later concluded she had not died immediately. She had been left in the dark, alive, among the bodies of her family. Maria Baumgartner, the new maid, was killed inside the house. The infant Josef was killed in his cradle. When the bodies were finally discovered, the farm had continued operating for at least 3 to 4 days after the murders. Neighbors noticed smoke rising from the chimney. The postal carrier later recalled that the last letters he delivered were never collected. One neighbor, Lorenz Schlittenbauer, grew concerned and organized a small group to check on the family. They found all 6 bodies in the barn and the house. Schlittenbauer himself pulled the victims from the hay. A documented account from investigators at the scene described finding the barn door locked from the inside. The livestock had been fed with fresh hay. There was food on the kitchen table, partially prepared. Whoever killed 6 people had then stayed, living on the property, eating from the kitchen, sleeping in the beds, tending to the animals, for days before vanishing without a trace. But here's what the history books never mentioned. The original investigation was catastrophic. More than 100 suspects were questioned in the weeks that followed. The crime scene was not preserved. Local curiosity seekers walked through the property before forensic examination was complete. The victims' heads were removed and sent to a Munich clairvoyant, a decision made by actual investigators, not a rumor. The skulls were later lost during World War II. Gone. The physical evidence that might have answered every question about the Hinterkaifeck murders simply no longer exists. Investigators developed several theories and none of them fully closed the case. The most persistent centered on Andreas Gruber himself. He had been convicted years earlier for an incestuous relationship with his daughter Viktoria. Josef, the infant, was widely believed to be his child, not the child of Viktoria's deceased husband. Some investigators believed the killer was someone connected to that secret, a relative, a former worker, someone who knew what the family had buried. But there was a problem. No one who fit that profile was ever placed at the farm. No physical evidence connected any named suspect. A second theory focused on Lorenz Schlittenbauer, the neighbor who discovered the bodies. He had previously had a relationship with Viktoria and believed Josef might be his son. He had reportedly been refused when he asked to marry Viktoria. Investigators noted that Schlittenbauer had entered the barn and handled the bodies before police arrived, potentially disturbing evidence. He was questioned repeatedly over the years. He denied everything, and yet no case was ever built against him. He died in 1941, never charged. A third theory proposed an unknown drifter or itinerant worker, someone who had sheltered in the barn, been discovered by Gruber, and killed the family to avoid exposure. This would explain the footprints Gruber described in the weeks before. It would explain the unfamiliar newspaper. And yet it raised the question no one could answer. Why would a stranger stay? Why tend to the farm, milk the cows, stoke the fire, for days, when every hour increased the risk of discovery? And then came something nobody expected. In 2007, German investigators formally reopened the Hinterkaifeck case. Cold case specialists at the Bavarian State Criminal Office reviewed the original files alongside modern forensic methods. They identified more than 100 suspects across the original investigation and worked to eliminate them systematically. After 2 years of review, they announced their conclusion. They had a prime suspect. They declined to name the person, stating only that the individual was long dead and that without surviving physical evidence, no formal case could be pursued. The case was closed again, no name released, no explanation given for the conclusion. The official files from the 2007 review remain partially restricted. The Hinterkaifeck farm was demolished in 1923. A chapel was built on the site. The graves of the 6 victims are in Riedhofen, a few kilometers away. We know the families' names. We know the date they died. We know the sequence of events in extraordinary detail. The footprints, the newspaper, the smoke from the chimney. What we do not know is who stood in that barn in the dark of a March evening in Bavaria and decided that all 6 of them had to die. Bavarian investigators consulted with criminal psychologists and forensic historians over 8 decades. They produced theories, profiles, suspect lists. None of it produced a name that could be proven. The case sits at the intersection of what cold case investigation can do and what it cannot. Evidence degrades, witnesses die, skulls are lost in a war, and sometimes a crime that happened in full daylight, in a farmhouse surrounded by neighbors, simply remains unknown. The Hinterkaifeck murders are one of Germany's most documented cold cases, and also one of its least resolved. The gap between those 2 facts is where the mystery lives. The animals were fed, the fire was burning, 6 people lay dead in a Bavarian barn, and whoever put them there stayed long enough to do the morning chores. After more than a century, investigators have a suspect they will not name in evidence that no longer exists. What kind of person kills a family and then tends to their farm for days in silence, as if nothing happened at all? The Unsolved Vault. New cases every week.